Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. I am so excited to share my 100th episode with you. And I can't think of a better guest than Chip Conley from the Modern Elder Academy to be on my 100th episode. I hope you enjoy it. As we start season 3 of Opening Pathways with Tom Lenoble, I'll see you there. Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers, or whatever time it is where you are. It's great to be with you again. This is Tom Lenoble, and I have an exciting guest for you today. I know I say that every now and then, but today really is exciting. I have Chip Conley, who is the founder and executive chairman of MEA. He's going to tell us all about MEA, the Modern Elder Academy, and other things that he does, which will be really exciting. Chip, welcome to Opening Pathways.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, it's very early in the morning for you, and I was up really early in the morning down here in Baja, in Mexico, where one of our MEA campuses is.
Yeah, wonderful. So I hear we're both the early risers. You know, they have words about us. Either they're real positive or that we're a little off. So I'll take both, right? So
Yeah.
I want to know, I want to start about Modern Elder Academy. And I'd love to know, share with the viewers about it. And even more, I'd love to know what sparked your idea to start it.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm honored to be here with you. Um, I When I was in my late 40s, I was struggling. I started a boutique hotel company in San Francisco called Joie de Vivre when I was 26 years old. And it was my identity. And, I really got a lot of my self-esteem from it. And then in my late 40s, everything that could go wrong was going wrong in my life. I had a long-term relationship ending, not by my choice. I had an African-American foster son who was going to San Quentin, not by his choice. And in fact, he was not guilty and he was let out, but he was there for 8 months. So I was stressed out with that. I lost 5 male friends to suicide during this particular time, 2008 to 2010. The Great Recession was happening. My company, my hotel company, was running out of money, and I didn't want to be even running the company anymore. So all that was happening at the same time. I had a near-death experience at that time due to an allergic reaction to an antibiotic. So that setting the table, this was what my life was like at age 47. And I came through the NDE, obviously came back to the other side, and I lived. But I said to myself, gosh, is this the way I want to live? I mean, is this really who I want to be and how I want to spend my time? And over the next 2 years, I pretty much changed everything. And I also recognized that there were not a lot of resources for people. Yes, my best friend was a coach and she helped me, and there were books and things. But generally, when we think about midlife, we think about the crisis. Midlife crisis. It's like a Hollywood trope, and most people don't have a midlife crisis. They have just a midlife stuckness, and there's a sense of being stuck, and whether that's in a marriage that doesn't have love anymore, or it's a career that feels like it's a dead end, or whatever identity it is that we're ready to let go of. And so, note to self in my late 40s, as I was getting my company prepared to sell, there's not much in the way of resources for people in this life stage. Then I sold the company at the bottom of the market and had 2 years where I could just have what I call the midlife atrium, the space, light, air space to sort of reimagine the second half of my life, my second adulthood. And then at 52, I was asked by the founders of Airbnb, when it was a tiny little tech company more than 13 years ago, to come in and be their modern elder, the person who is as curious as they were wise, as in their words. And I was curious because I'd never worked in a tech company, unlike you. Didn't have a background in tech at all. And so here I was supposed to be the mentor to the founders of Airbnb, but I was as much an intern as I was a mentor. So I called myself a mentern. And it was during that time, that 7.5 years of helping Airbnb grow into the most valuable hospitality company in the world, that I came to realize that being a modern elder is what we all should aspire to. And after having had a really rough time in my late 40s, I had a flourishing 50s. And that led me to creating the Modern Elder Academy, MEA, with two campuses, one here in Baja, where I am right now, and the second one, a huge 2,600 acre horse ranch just outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Santa Fe,
I
New Mexico.
love this. I love this. You talk about the midlife crisis. It cracks me up because when I was at Facebook, everybody was 20 and 21 and I was 50.
Yeah.
And so I was called the adult in the room. In fact, that's my next book. And lately they've all hit their 40s. And I noticed their posts are about, I'm in my 40s, they've got kids now, and they're like, my life is over. And they're in this tragic moment that I look at and I go, you have no idea. Your life has just begun. So I love that. And I love this idea that you went to Airbnb as an elder, so to speak, as I did at Facebook, and it's what I do today. I love this idea that we take what this crisis that is deemed as a crisis and turn it into a tremendous opportunity, and moreover, a life of service to others, which is what I'm all about. Tell me this: you spoke about change. Since you started MEA, how have you changed?
Yeah, so we started MEA over 8 years ago. And I think that, let me count the ways. I have changed in that during that time, I got a diagnosis that I had prostate cancer, and we'll talk more about that. So, like, once again, coming face to face with death. Um, Death is such an organizing principle for life. And so that's happened. I think, since we've had 8,500 people go through our program and our graduates, I think I've felt this deep sense of ripple of impact. I spent most of my life focusing on a different form of ROI, return on investment. And what I feel profoundly today is the sense of ripple of impact. And every single day, I will get an email, a text, you know, whatever, from somebody just saying how their life changed. There's the movie It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey, tells the story of Clarence the Angel coming down and showing George what his town would have been like if he had never lived. Well, I have that feeling daily of what would the world be with if I hadn't been here. And I say that not from a heroism place, but I say that from a place of like to be in service, to know that I am what survives me. And what survives me, I hope, will be not my name on a building, but my fingerprints on someone's heart and on their soul in a way that has had an impact on them and an impact on me too. Um, so that's a big, big shift for me. I think I've moved from ego to soul.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's been a beautiful new dance with, when I was in sixth grade, I went to ballroom dancing class, and as the boy, I learned how to lead the girl dancing, and the girl was going backwards in heels. And I think that the way I think of ego and soul is in that ballroom dancing way. The first half of our life, the ego is leading the dance. The soul is going backwards in heels. But it's around midlife that actually it shifts.
Yes.
And the soul is now leading the dance, and the ego is going backwards in heels. And if the ego doesn't have a sense of humor, that'll be a treacherous experience. And with the ego and my ego learning how to have a sense of humor, um, I can look at my life and say, like, wow, Oh, look at silly me. Look at my ego on display, or look at what I'm learning right now. And so I think, the last 8 years has been a lot about the ego being in the back seat.
Yeah, I love this, Chip. Viewers, we're getting a lot of great wisdom today. This will be one of those you'll want to listen to more than once. And who knows, Chip may be a part two someday. I love this idea. It's actually a question for later of what does legacy mean to you at this stage in your life that you just shared with us? Not dissimilar from you, I danced with that word and even avoided that word. And through my philanthropy, realized that it's not about a name on a building. It's not about a gala. It's really about what trees have I planted that I may not feel the shade of. And I love this idea. In fact, I created a keynote called The Philanthropic Mindset, helping people see that you can be a philanthropist because people would say, when I have money, I want to be a philanthropist. But your smile or your hello can be a philanthropic gesture. So I love this, Chip. Tell me this. I think that I talk with people a lot on this podcast, and I love this question because I think early in our lives, someone had some sort of influence on who we are today. Who was that
Mhm.
for Chip?
It was my grandmother, Nani. So I had four grandparents, and they're all living for most of my childhood. And but three of the four were alcoholics, and um, and it's not like they were terrible alcoholics. Although my grandfather on the other side, he had a clock in his office that actually had, of course, the 12 different um, parts of the positions on the clock, but each of those said 5 o'clock, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And I would say, boo, grandpa, why is it always 5 o'clock? And he says, well, because at 5 o'clock you can start to drink. And but my grandmother on the other side, Nani, also, known as Marge, she had a joie de vivre. Ultimately, I created a company called Joie de Vivre, Joy of Life. But Nani had a sense of sparkle in her eye and a really deep curiosity for everything. And she would take me up to Olvera Street in LA. I grew up in Long Beach, and we would just go shopping with the at the Mexican stands there. And Nani she just had such a good heart, and she didn't know much Spanish, but she knew enough to get along. And we would go and buy fruits at the market, and and she loved tomatoes. She says, and I didn't love tomatoes as a kid. She's just like, how can you be a Californian and not love tomatoes? I mean, she's saying this to me at age 6. I don't know. I don't know, Nani. I'm a Californian, but I don't like tomatoes. But I love tomatoes today. But yeah, so she just had a joie de vivre about her. And later in her life, she was the last of the four grandparents to die, and she had dementia. And the the thing remember the most about her is that when she did not have dementia, she smiled a lot. But when she had dementia, she only smiled. She didn't know what you were saying to her, but
Yeah.
she smiled all the time. It was sort of like, just a strange thing. Like, okay, she's just happy.
Yeah, if there's one thing about dementia, I went through that with my father and a few other people in the family, is the blessing of it for most people is they don't realize that's what's happening to them. While it's tragic for those around them, they tend to be in a very somewhat happy, if albeit confused at time, place. So I love Nona and the story about her. Tell me this, where has life asked you to slow down recently, and what did you hear?
I'm laughing. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I slow down it's the mantra that I have. And so let me give you the backstory. So I created a hotel in San Francisco called the Hotel Vitale. And it was a luxury hotel on the waterfront across the street from the ferry building. And it was sort of a spa hotel meets a business hotel. and we had slippers in the hotel. The hotel opened in 2005. The slippers in the hotel, and one slipper said slow, and the other one said down, slow down. So in 2008, I had my flatline experience. And when I was in the midst of the experience and I was in the liminal state in between life and death, I had all of these visions. And one of the visions I had was flying around a big 40-foot tall living room. And I was surrounded by birds. And the birds were talking to me and they told me to slow down. They said, you cannot see beauty or awe unless you slow down. And so I came out of that experience having gone flatline 9 times over 90 minutes and having that recurring thought that slowing down was maybe the thing I was supposed to do. And then I sold the business and I slowed down for 2 years. And then Airbnb happened and I sped up again. And and then MEA happened and I sped up again. And but then more recently, my stage one cancer 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, moved to stage two. And then 3 years ago, actually, I'm sorry, 4.5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, went to stage two. And then 3 years ago, I went to stage three, became metastatic. And initially in my pelvic lymphs, and now it's growing again. And so, a mosquito around me. I've got to figure out what the theme of the
I thought the
mosquito is.
birds were talking to you.
No, no, the birds do talk to me. This time in the morning is my favorite.
Yeah, I talk to them all the time.
So, um, with metastatic prostate cancer that's spreading, um, I'm learning to slow down. One of the things I'm working on, Tom, is something for myself, which is next February. I'm going to be doing a ritual. I'm 65 now. I'll be 66 then, and hopefully still living. I think I will be. Uh, but the idea is I'm calling it the month I died, and the whole premise is how do I not take a sabbatical for a month because I've done that before and I love that. But that's a different thing. You do a sabbatical and like, oh, I'm going to go do a Spanish immersion in San Miguel, or I'm going to learn guitar, or I'm going to write a memoir, or I'm going to do whatever. And it's very, it's maybe unstructured on some level, but there's still some element of being online and having a phone and having a laptop. So I'm going to go off the grid completely. I will not have a phone. Maybe I'll have a burner phone, but I will not have my phone. Nobody will know how to get a hold of me. I will have somehow I need a laptop because I want to write when I'm so called, but but somehow I'm going to not have any access to anything else. I'm going to throw a dinner party the night before I do this month long. So it's next February when I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a dinner party with a small group of friends, and we're going to do eulogies for each other. We're just
Okay.
going to we're going to basically share the kind of thing that you'd share at a eulogy, but we're going to do it with each other while we're living. And then I'm going to go offline for a month and have zero planned and really not have any clue what every day is going to be like. And
Mm.
this will be the ultimate form of slowing down for me.
I love this. It's the vision quest we used to read about. I do them not a month long, but I do them here on Maui occasionally, and they have brought in tremendous, tremendous change in my life. And viewers, Chip and I share this metastatic prostate cancer diagnosis. And if you've listened to me, I've had two life-threatening illnesses, the first terminal, and I'm still here. And I've lived with metastatic cancer for the last 14 years. And Chip, I've had enough radiation that I glow in the dark. You can put me in the corner and I can be your nightlight. You just stick me over there and I'll illuminate the room for you. But when we talk about health challenges, what I've learned is for me, they become health opportunities, even gifts at time. In fact, I have something I speak to called terrible gifts. We lose someone we love, a relationship ends, we get sick, a disaster hits, a pet dies. These are terrible things no one would ever want for anyone they know. Yet, if we're present to them, whether it's a month, a year, 10 years, some gift will come from it because if we're present, life goes on and we see a whole nother podcast that we could talk about resilience and reinvention. But I love this idea where we have these challenges and how and what we do with them. And so, I'm interested really in knowing more about how this experience has required you to use risk and even resilience. Where in your life, as this has happened, I don't know how you feel. I certainly know it's how it's made me feel of, again, being heavily, heavily treated. My metastatic cancer was in my bone and has been I'm not going to go into it here, but has been a journey, and I encourage you, you will be fine. I'm stable today after Mets 4 for quite a while, and but I want to know
That's for like
stage
that.
4, stage
So you went to stage 4. Okay.
yeah, stage 4. I've been given 6 months to live 3 times. And one of those times, the last one, the cancer came back and they said it's in 5 places. We can't do anything for you. If we radiate you, we'll fry you. And there's something about Tom Lenoble that when I hear that something either can't be done or it's impossible, it sparks this thing that used to happen when I was a little kid that's worked well for me and got me in trouble a few times, but it pops up and says, watch this. And so
And where does that come from, Tom? So what in your origin story with your family
yeah,
and where you grew up?
if you read my book, I grew up in a shack. We called it the shack. We didn't have hot water. We didn't have a refrigerator. Yet there was a lot of love and a lot of what I didn't know at the time as resilience of people making things work. And I went to school. I was one of those kids that went to school when I was 5. And I remember my little 5-year-old mind coming home after a few weeks of school, going and looking around, going, yeah, this isn't what everybody else's experience is. And in my own little world, thinking, yeah, this isn't for me. And I just think challenges that I had with that, and as I grew up, and um, things that were presented to me. I was bullied, and we've heard all those stories, but my reaction to them was, how do not only do I survive, but how am I crafty with this? So I remember in 5th grade getting bullied, so I found Dee Dee Collins, who had failed 5th grade twice, was about 2 feet taller than the rest of us, and I made a deal with her to let her wear my watch and have my brownie every day if she'd made my girlfriend. So she agreed. Well, until she said she wasn't my girlfriend anymore, nobody bullied me anymore because they had the fear of Dee Dee Collins. So it's those kinds of things that now as an adult that, I'm sort of like, watch this. I was on disability. I had 9 T cells. They said, this is it. And when they said, this is it, I went, oh, really? I don't think so. So I went back to work against all odds and my health soared. So I think that's just something in me, but I'm interested for you of what these experiences bring to you and how you find either taking risks or how you use your resilience to continue to reinvent, as we've heard from you these few times, of what happens in your life.
One of the things I like to say is resilience buys you time, but adaptability buys you a future. And so resilience, in the way I think of it, there's a bit of a white knuckling thing for me when I'm being resilient, which means that it does feel finite. It's not the resilience of what it takes to survive is not what I want to thrive. It's not the resilience alone. The resilience does is it buys me the time to then realize that I need to adapt to a new set of circumstances. And the adaptability then buys me the future. So resilience buys me time, adaptability buys me the future. And so what that requires is a certain amount of evolution. It's like, okay, keep keep flying the plane, Chip, but at the same time, we're going to rebuild the plane while you're flying the plane. So it's not easy to do both resilience and adaptability because one is based upon just trying to survive. The other is rethinking and evolving what you are. But yeah, I've done it many times, and I've had to do it as an entrepreneur
Yeah.
quite a bit. Um, but I think that, yeah, the first step is the resilience piece because without the resilience, you don't have the time to adapt.
Yes.
Um, so my meditation practice, which is been part of my life for 43 years now, is part of what keeps me resilient. It's part of what, I teach 40 workshops a year, 40 workshops or public workshops or private retreats a year. And I'm in the midst of one right now. Today's our last day. We'll have graduation tonight. But I mean, the level of intimacy, the level of depth,
Love it.
the level of connection with the 26 people that I've got in the workshop this week is profound. And guess what? I'm doing another one next week. So, um, part of what allows me to be resilient is the meditation, but it's my Sunday Sabbath. It's the recognition that every single week, I try to actually take my Sundays off. And my Sunday off is really meaning I'm not much online during Sundays. I don't talk. I am not with other people. Typically, I am in a bit of a monk state. Um, I go for long, long hikes with my dog. I write. I take naps. Um, Sometimes I watch movies. I have we have an MEA film fest, and I love. I wrote a screenplay when I was 24. I love the film industry, and so I sometimes use my Sundays to just binge watch 3 films that I'm considering for our
Love
film.
it.
So yeah, so that is a way for me to know on a Wednesday when I'm overburdened, like, okay, on Sunday I'm going to be regenerating.
Yes, a time of what I call renewal for sure.
Mhm.
I think we all need to find a way to renew. In fact, you intuitively are answering my questions before I get to ask them. I love that. I see resilience like a muscle. Like we exercise our bicep or tricep to try and make it look good as, have nice guns for somebody, I guess. And I see resilience, the more I use it, the more it's available for me and the more I can draw upon it. And I love this idea of renewal that you've shared, and I encourage everyone to think about how they renew. Tell me this. I suspect both of us have experienced fear in our lives. And how do you know when fear is bringing information versus a stop sign?
Yeah. So some people call fear false evidence appearing real, but sometimes it's not false. Sometimes it's something you're supposed to take note of. And that's where wisdom comes along. I love the serenity prayer, which is really a wisdom prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it is in that wisdom between, you know, the serenity or the serenity of surrender, the courage of resilience. It's in that wisdom that I know whether I need to forge forward or I need to just surrender. And so the fear is an important emotion because it's meant to either allow you to retract or to forge forward. And
Yeah.
so our emotions are signals. And, ideally over the course of our life, we become chief emotions officers, a different form of a CEO. And by understanding and being fluent and understanding how to dance with your emotions and how to note when something is false evidence appearing real versus when, yeah, the fear is founded. That is founded fear. It is, you should note that fear is there for a reason. Um, Yeah, I think the wisdom, if we can, over the course of time, my definition of wisdom, MEA is the world's first midlife wisdom school. And so I better have a definition of wisdom. And wisdom is metabolized experience or life lessons, mindfully shared for the common good.
Love it.
So that's wisdom is the thing that to me distinguishes between false fear and true fear.
Yes. Yeah, my life's wisdom, which is a term I like to use as well, because even my book is it refers to some of that about who we are today, is the some parts of who we've been, even though some of those parts may be outrageous, shameful. We think they should be private or somebody just wouldn't understand, but you wouldn't be who you are today without them. But
Mhm.
my life has taught me to this point that fear, even the imposter syndrome that we talk about so much, are simply opportunities for growth.
Mhm.
Now, if a bear's chasing me, that's a different kind of fear. But I think it brings us an opportunity to look at what that fear is presenting. And again, what you say, what's real about it, what's not, but what is it trying to bring to me that might help me grow?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as Elizabeth Gilbert is one of our faculty members at MEA, as she says, we're all in Earth School. And in Earth School, you're just supposed to be learning the whole time. And, for a lot of us, as we get older, we somehow think that we're not in Earth School anymore. We're ready to
Yes.
graduate. And, Dan Gilbert from the Harvard psychologist said at a TED Talk, human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think they're finished. Human beings are works in progress that mistakenly think they're finished. And we're never finished until we're finished.
Yes, I want to be learning. In fact, I say this, I want to be learning till my last breath. And likely when the last breath happens, I'll say, just a moment, I have a question. And
Yeah.
so,
One more.
yes, I got one more to ask. So tell me this, what are you most proud of? Not professionally, not publicly, but personally.
I think I'm proud of the fact that at 22 years old, having lived a life where I was Stephen Townsend Conley Jr., chip off the old block. My father was a Marine captain in the reserves, and I was the only son, the oldest child, two parents who were both hyper type A's. My parents were very conservative. I did everything I could growing up to be a better version of my dad. I was an Eagle Scout just like him. He was my baseball coach. I was the star pitcher. I played water polo and swam at the same high school he did. I went to Stanford where he went. I met my girlfriend in freshman year of college, who I thought I'd marry, just like he did, my mom. They met at Stanford. But at 22 years old in New York, in the early stages of the AIDS crisis, when I was working for Morgan Stanley Real Estate, you know, investment banker, full of machismo, I came out. I came out as a gay man at 22 years old in the midst of the AIDS crisis, having played, been an All-American water polo player at Stanford, been in a fraternity, lived a life that was really meant to be a better version of my father's life, because I was named after him. And I came out and I had a beautiful summer romance, and came home and told my dad and was put into reparative therapy. And that's a whole other story. But
Yes.
I persevered, and I still knew that this is who I was. And so I think I'm most proud of the fact that at 22, at exactly the wrong timing in many ways, I came out, and what came out of that, my coming out, was there were all these skills I had that I'd been hiding: my empathy, my sense of humor, my design eye, my ability to be a social alchemist, a mixologist of people. And when I started my hotel company, my boutique hotel company, 4 years later at 26, as a gay CEO, Um, I was able to be my full self.
It's the best.
I wasn't holding anything back. And my father got to see that there was this hidden chip that all of a sudden he had no idea I had these skills. And thankfully, over the course of the next 24 years running that company and growing to 3,500 employees, I was able to show that, frankly, being able to be exactly who I am allowed me to be as successful as I was,
Yes.
which was the thing my dad was most fearful of. He was worried that I was going to die being gay from AIDS, but he was more worried, frankly, that in his mind, even he said it to me, that I'd be a hairdresser or a florist. And that's, to his mind, what gay people did when they came out. And I have lots of friends who are hairdressers and florists, so fine for them, but it wasn't for me. And all of a sudden, my dad realized, wow, there's this latent skill and talent I had that I'd been holding down in order to present as a straight dude.
It's amazing these stories we have, especially during that time period. I went away to school and came out, but not to my parents. My brother and I were both gay.
Mm.
And in 1985, years later, my brother was an early, died of AIDS at San Francisco General in
Mm.
1985. And I got to make this horrible phone call to my parents, my little small town, somewhat conservative, not politically, but conservative in their thinking, who also, you just described a lot of their thinking, to tell them their son was dying of AIDS and was gay. And they were wonderful. But subsequently, a few years later, I came out to them and some of those same fears of, who will you be, what will you become? And I made a commitment through my illness that I would outlive my parents, and I did against all odds. And both of them, as I was with them, somewhat of a death doula for my brother, my mother, and my father, as they made their transition, I knew that I had made them proud. I knew that I had all these fears they had of what it meant for me being a gay man had been erased and shifted their way of thinking dramatically. But I think most important was what it did for me, because I think we all come here with a unique assignment. We're all unique, and part of life's journey is to find out what we actually came here to do.
Mhm.
And I love these stories of how we find them and how we get there. And I think, especially, I may be wrong, but I especially think those of us that are somewhat um, either marginalized or oppressed or whatever about who we are or what we might be, when we learn to polish that away and shine of who we really are, we bring our gifts to the world. Tell me this, Chip, what value do you value and protect the most, especially when no one's watching?
How to support the underdog, how to support somebody who, it's why I had a African American foster son. It's why, I have really done my best to booster women entrepreneurs and LGBTQ entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, I I want to do everything I can to help support those who could use a little bit of a boost. And then, in their own way, they can karmically pass
Yes,
that on to someone else.
it's the best. I love this life of, for me, supporting underserved communities or people that might not find a way. I think we do a disservice to ourselves and society. I know I do work with an organization that does first gen students. No one's ever gone to college before, and these kids are brilliant, and they get the opportunity, and we get the opportunity to experience their brilliance. And I trust, even though I'll never beat them, I trust that they will one day carry it on. So I have two more questions. I want to honor your timing. If your younger, much younger self were listening to this podcast, what would you tell him?
Be yourself, everyone else is taken, which is an amazing Oscar Wilde line. Yeah, just, the more you can uncover why you're here, like, why are you here? Mark Twain said, there are two most important days of your life, the day you were born and the day you figured out why. And it's that figuring out why, that raison d'etre, that ikigai, that sense of why, who am I and why am I here? That is maybe the most important thing you can find in life. And so, how do you move from job to career to calling over the course of a work life? Khalil Gibran from in The Prophet said, "Work is love made visible." So, how do you realize that the work that we do can have an enormous impact? Even if it's just literally on one person,
Yes.
and the profound sense that we move from, as David Brooks says, our resume virtues to our eulogy virtues over the course of our lifetime.
Yes.
So, how do you want to be remembered?
Yes. So we need a part two. If you could leave the listeners with one invitation today, what would that invitation be?
Come visit me. Come visit me. Yeah, the invitation would be, yeah, I lead lots of workshops, and I do that in Baja, I do it in Santa Fe. And so the invitation would be come and do a deep dive into opening the aperture of your life. Because one of the challenges as we get older is we sometimes we start to close the aperture of our options. And in fact, it's really after 50, the aperture is supposed to open wider. In fact, that's why the U curve of happiness research, social science research shows that people actually get happier after 50, after having a low point around 45 to 50. So yeah, come visit.
Yeah. Well, I'm a listener and I'm listening. So maybe I'll have to come see you. Tell us how we find you, Chip.
You can find me at, just MEA Wisdom is the Modern Elder Academy website. I have a blog there, a daily blog called Wisdom Well, under the free wisdom section. There's also I have a 3 time a week podcast called the Midlife Chrysalis, and you're welcome to check that out. And chipconley.com is another place you could find out about my 8 books and a bunch of other stuff I do.
Chip Conley, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Yeah, I think we've opened a lot of pathways on this with this
Yes, we
conversation.
did. Yes, we did. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble, and I'll see you next time.